Hello there guys, and welcome to Mad Doc Minis. We are continuing our big battleboard build of the Frigate Warspite today, and we are going to be talking about servitors. As per a suggestion from one of my viewers, I'm going to make some damage control servitors to put out fires aboard my big warship, and also a station for them to operate from. I'm going to start with some of these AdMech battle servitors, and these are going to be put together pretty much as they're supposed to for the most part, as you'll see. So the torso and the tracks go together exactly as they're meant to. No real surprises there. And once we've put them together in that fashion, all three of them, instead of gluing the exhaust pipes onto this nice flat section at the back, I'm going to use this Lego vent, cut out the middle strut like so. And that's going to add a nice mounting point for a big pressurized cylinder to go on the back, which is going to contain all the foam or the water or whatever these things are carrying to put out the fires. So that gets glued on with super glue, and then I'm going to use this gaming piece from the game Frustration to represent the big cylinder, and that gets glued onto there. I'm going to use an AdMech cock just to cover up that hole on the side there, which is from the Adeptus Titanicus game. I think it's a counter from that game. It's got a nice little bit of detail that covers up that hole. And after that, we're going to cannibalize one of the weapons. I don't want this to be a weapon as such. I want it to be a big water or foam cannon. So I'm just chopping this down and making a bit more of a snub-nosed version of it, really. I don't know what this weapon is actually called in the game, so just drop it down in the comments in case people want to know, because I don't collect AdMech really, so it's all a bit new for me, this stuff. So I make that kind of trimmed down version, glue that together, and then mount that to the weapon housing exactly as it's supposed to go on. So once again, no serious conversion work, just chopping it down a little bit. I then use a Playmobil, an old Playmobil fire hose, and attach that onto the back of the foam or water cannon, if you will, and then glue the other end underneath the chassis as if it's been, you know, fed from that big pressurized cylinder that we've got on the back there. This I do change later on, so please stay tuned because I do change my mind with this. But that's looking pretty good. I mean, I was reasonably satisfied with these until I found something better, to be honest with you. But that's the kind of general gist. You know, these are kind of firefighting servitors, basically. So next up on the agenda, we are going to chop up this Lego steering wheel, and I'm going to glue that onto the side of the cylinder as if it's like a release valve in case you need to kind of manually kind of shut it off or something like that. Just adds a bit of detail for no effort really. And as you can see here, the squadron is looking pretty good. We're then going to build the station to go around them. So I've actually mounted them on bases because I want them to be kind of playable pieces. I might make up some special rules for these guys or something. So I chop these shapes out of 1 centimetre thick foam board, which is a bit thicker than normal. Most foam boards are about kind of half that depth, isn't it? But these are a bit more substantial. I got some of this on Amazon. I'm glad I did. It's a kind of thicker wall, which is nice. I pin that all together using just regular sewing pins and make sure I've got enough space to kind of get those servitors in and out of those slots as well. So a bit of careful measuring required there. I then kind of add the back on, once again just pinning it all together for now because it's going to get properly glued together in a minute. Looking good. That's the general gist of the station, the general shape. Once again, I do recheck that those things will fit in there, because as you're building it and as you're pinning it, the struts do kind of shift around quite a bit. I then glue on using some regular PVA, a little bit of just normal cardstock onto the top because I kind of overshot with the back plate, and then weigh that down just to kind of flatten the top off a little bit there. I'm then going to put on a bit of a thick covering of wall emulsion paint onto the kind of exposed foam, because if I'm going to spray this thing later, I don't want to melt the foam. So that goes on any exposed foam core there. Then I'm going to paint the servitors in this lovely orange colour. This is, what is this, Griffhound orange, I think. It's a contrast paint. Really, really love it. Nice kind of hazard orange colour. And then I kind of paint the other components red. Once again, I do change this, so stay tuned. The skin gets painted with, I think that's Rathbone, and then a little bit of a yellow contrast paint on the tube. But this whole thing's looking too hot. It looks like some sort of flame kind of device, so I'm going to change that later. But the tracks get a coat of Black Templar, and then I kind of change the colour here. This gets changed a lot. I'm really sorry about this, guys. This is Thunderhawk Blue, and I kind of change those components over to that colour. I then add a bit of extra detail, going back and forth between the servitors and the station, add a bit of detail into the recesses there using these ruminate parts. I don't know what this is representing, just greebling really, big kind of like ducting vents. Maybe the servitors need to get cool, I don't know, a bit of air conditioning for them, you know. Adding a bit of extra ruminate on top there, as you can see, just extra detail for no effort. I do love my ruminate, don't I? And then adding some granny grating over the top because I want that to be playable. It's going to be a walkway on top there, and that just adds extra detail for no effort. And then coming back here, this is Mortarian grime, or whatever it's called, and that is really good for making pallid flesh. So, you know, that's what I do for the flesh there, over the top of the Rathbone. Dry brushing some lead belcher on there to add some kind of, you know, wear and tear. I make this water tank out of various different components, and then glue that straight to the back of the station. And I do kind of put a pipe out of either end there as well. And I realised that that's looking a bit kind of bare really, and I want this to be a nice playable piece, so I do come back with some more stuff later on. And then here we go, I'm going to change the whole thing again. So I take off that hose, I wasn't really happy with that, and then I use these Lego hoses which are a little bit more detailed. Okay, so I'm going to chop one end off of those, and one end is going to be the kind of nozzle at the end of the gun, which is a perfect size, and the other end is going to slot onto the back, and it does so perfectly. I do add a bit of glue, although it doesn't really need it, to be honest with you. And then the other end of the hose gets glued onto the, you know, the, what's it called, that kind of like release valve that I put on there afterwards. Right, so a slightly different position there, just because the length of the hose is a bit shorter. All right, but that's going to look better once it's painted up. It's a bit more detailed. And that other end I chopped off goes onto the front there, and that really finishes it for me. That looks much more like a kind of big foam cannon now. So I'm really happy that I changed that. And I give it another coat of paint now because I wasn't happy with the Thunderhawk blue. A brighter blue, McCrag blue goes on top of there. I'm then going to glue some EPVC panels to hide this kind of foam core. I kind of chop those and measure them carefully so I know what size they are and everything. So they just go on with a little bit of hot glue there onto the front, and that just helps to hide some of that foam core. I do come back in with some more of that later as well. And going back to that big water tank, a little bit of ruminate again, hot glued on top. That's a nice walkway, and I'm going to add a ladder for access up there. I want this to be as playable as it can be, really. So this is just old child's toy tennis racket, kind of chopped up ladder, you know, that sort of trick. And then adding a little bit more granny grating over the top. Nice. So looking good. I added more of those ladders up the side as well, as you'll see, and some more EPVC in the centre sections there. Some more Lego steering wheels for kind of release valves, and a little section of ladder made from a hair roller. Here, more ruminate on top. This is the same stuff I use as the railings on the drop pod launchers. Just kind of ties the terrain together, I think. And then adding some nice rivets with those kind of self-adhesive pearls. A bit of careful measuring there, and the whole thing gets primed in grey, and it's really kind of, you know, finished it off nicely. I am going to come in with a more detailed paint job, but for now I'm just doing my terrain up to this standard so I can get an idea of the complete board. So bear with me, guys. I'm going to come in and paint this up and make it look a lot nicer, dry brush it, add some more details, but you can get the idea of where I'm coming from hopefully here. Got some miniatures on there to show the playability look, so it's nice and playable, and it's just a nice little piece. And I like the idea of having some special rules for those servitors. If you like the content, please like and share. It does help, and consider giving me a subscription if you're not already subscribed. Cheers.